struggle to reach perfection is one occasionally tackled in film. The fight to be the best in one's field and how it deteriorates a person, chipping them away and pushing them to physical and mental extremes. One film that takes on the subject particularly well is the 2014 Damien Chazelle film Whiplash, based on his short film of the same name. Hi, I'm Luke, and this is the C-Files. The opening starts with the sound of the protagonist Andrew's music, which foreshadows how his music will become before him. Fading from darkness, we see a long shot of Andrew, his character already in many ways defined by his ambition, in the dimly lit room playing the drums. It was shot from afar to show him alone, and how he already pours much of his time to drumming, pushing any social life aside. His father, played by Paul Reiser, and girlfriend Nicole, played by Melissa Benoist, are the only people he talks to, having thrown himself into his hobby of drumming. When Fletcher walks down, he strides comfortably and confident, a master of his domain, looking down on people around him. J.K. Simmons' character, the manipulative Fletcher, is a jazz music teacher who preys on his students with a blind determination and mercilessly use of personal and private facts in a tirade against people below him, in supposed fight to mould the greatest musician. We first meet Fletcher properly, and his abusive alter ego is revealed when Andrew first takes part in one of his classes. The scene starts uncomfortably, Andrew convinced by Fletcher to arrive early, and seems invisible as the rest of the class comes in, ignoring him. Fletcher walks in, the mood immediately changes, and his students sit with a military-like stiffness as though a tiger has walked in who may attack them. When the music starts, it's in perfect unison, and expertly played. This is in contrast to an earlier scene where another class, where the same teacher seems more laid back, but the music is lacking, because the musicians are all slightly out of sync. Simmons starts to target a student by noticing an imperfection and becoming impatient, before exploding in the student's face, yelling profanity and kicking him out, before then revealing it was not because he was playing badly, but because he didn't know whether or not he was. The scene shows the ruthlessness that Fletcher conducts with, and how he sows fear among his students. The director Damien Chazelle expresses the power dynamic with camera movements. Wide sweeping shots are used to follow Fletcher, representing the amount of power he has in his class, but then showing his students with tight close-up shots, showing the tenseness and lack of power they have. As Andrew progresses in Fletcher's class, his slow obsession with drumming and desire to become the best is pushed by Fletcher's expectant abusive behaviour. However, he starts to reach a point in where he may leave, pulling away to a healthier point, but Fletcher notices. He finds competition for Andrew, moving his gaze away, knowing that what will torment Andrew more than any insult is thinking he's not good enough, and will never be good enough to be remembered as a great musician. Andrew is pushed harder and has to compete for another for Fletcher's attention. Andrew talks to his competition with utter disdain, despite his kind demeanour, not unlike the way the former drumming student spoke to Andrew when he first joined. Fletcher's repeating of the cycle, pushing his students to make them hate the competition and creating a toxic kill-or-be-killed mentality of blatant disgust among the students for each other. His attitude towards other people even affecting his outside life, shown by a scene where he breaks up with his girlfriend, saying that she will hold him back and to start to resent him for spending so much time as he does drumming. Andrew starts to push harder and harder, as the music becomes the obsession of his life. This is expressed in Fletcher's class, where the lighting is warm and bright with high-energy conflict, but whenever not in class, Andrew's life is shown as dark and dull, with ugly dark tones. Andrew's true obsession is shown at Thanksgiving dinner scene, where his psychology of his practice is revealed. He claims to be remembered and praised for his mastery after he's gone, saying he would rather die young but be remembered like many other fabled musicians, rather than old and with friends and family and be remembered by them.
My idea of success.
I'd rather die drunk, broke at 34 and have people at a dinner table talk about me than live to be rich and sober at 90 and nobody remember who I was.
Later, one represented how music has taken over Andrew's life, where his hands have started to bleed and cut open when he plays. Bloodying his kit, he dunks his wounded hands in icy water, the red invading all the water around to make a scarlet pool. Writer director Damien Chazelle drew from his experience as a practicing drummer when coming up with the character of Fletcher, basing him on some of his previous instructors. Many of the other band members were played by musicians, who also talked about how Fletcher felt in many ways like conductors they themselves had performed with. Chazelle also mixed many forms of cinema when making the movie. He wanted parts to feel like a thriller, but also mixed pure cinema, as he put it, with the rhythm of the music being played, the editing becoming more frantic as the movie went on, as Andrew's mental state deteriorated. Chazelle also said he wanted the film to feel like a twisted sort of romantic film between Fletcher and Andrew, which he wanted the two to seek each other out, and the screen to feel a, quote, buzz when the two conflicted. Finally, Andrew breaks in a long set piece where he prepares for a show and nearly kills himself doing it. Andrew arrives at the performance without drumsticks and rushes back, knowing where he left them. Chazelle shows Andrew's heightened frantic state with a handheld camera, with the uneven shots rushed following the panting Andrew. Andrew was shown to be abusive to his classmates as Fletcher is to him, as he yells down the phone driving to the performance.
Okay, look, why don't you just tell Fletcher that I'm coming, you motherfucker!
He gets up and continues running towards the studio, running after his career with a blind fury, wiping the blood away from his brow, ignoring the driver, who is like the audience, yelling, insisting he stops. When he gets there, he's sloppy, and at one point dropping his sticks, barely able to stay awake until Fletcher makes him stop. Andrew snaps. Knowing Fletcher has given up on him, he pounces on the teacher and is dragged away by his fellow students, kicking and screaming as the camera focuses on the blood in his drum, a representation of all the pain that put it into naught. The film cuts forward in time. Andrew walks around seemingly aimless, with nothing in his life. He's content but feels something missing. Both he and the audience know he should feel better. An earlier scene showed Andrew agree to anonymously testify against Fletcher, getting him fired. The film is desaturated with grayer colours, contrasting to the energetic vibrance of Fletcher's studio. This continues until Andrew finds a sign saying Fletcher will play there, something that Andrew, through some deeper subconscious, goes to see, in some way drawn to him. Fletcher notices him and invites him over. This scene is where we again see the kind facade Fletcher puts on for people. They speak about the 20th century saxophonist Charlie Parker, who died tragically at the age of 36, and Fletcher talks about what motivated him.
I told you that story about how Charlie Parker became Charlie Parker, right?
Joe Jones threw a cymbal at his head.
Exactly. Parker's a young kid, pretty good on the sax, gets up to play at a cutting session, and he fucks it up. And Jones nearly decapitates him for it. And he's laughed off stage. Cries himself to sleep that night, but the next morning, what does he do? He practices. And he practices and he practices with one goal in mind, never to be laughed at again. And a year later, he goes back to the Reno, and he steps up on that stage and he plays the best motherfucking solo the world has ever heard. So imagine if Jones had just said, well, that's okay, Charlie. That was all right. Good job. And Charlie thinks to himself, well, shit, I did do a pretty good job. End of story. No bird. That, to me, is an absolute tragedy.
It's here that we understand his mentality of being born out of pain, and why he treated his students like he did, believing that if Joe Jones had never thrown a cymbal at Parker, he would never feel motivated to do a better job, believing that the most dangerous words in the English language were good job. He then says that he never had his Charlie Parker, whilst looking at Andrew, but he says he tried. Fletcher then asks Andrew if he'd come play for him one last time, not as a teacher-student relationship, but as a conductor in a performance. The movie's famous finale is where Andrew comes to a sort of peace, not a happy ending, but more the result of his obsession. Fletcher reveals he's only asked Andrew's help to embarrass him in front of the industry. He knows that Andrew got fired and decided to destroy his career with a terrible performance. The scene starts with Andrew panicking and struggling to hear the song. He walks off stage into the arms of his father, Fletcher, looking at him and watching him, thinking he's won, until Andrew turns back onto stage. Andrew returns with an even expression, and knowing fully what he will do for the first time in the movie, Fletcher looks concerned, but the audience can almost see the fear in his eyes. Andrew starts to play, cutting Fletcher off, knowing that he is finally in control of the music, and his life, as he cues in the other musicians. Fletcher soon joins in, cueing in the rest of the group. Chazelle uses kinetic editing to portray the music, filming as if it was a musical, the complex tracking shots and rapid-fire editing. As Fletcher starts to conduct, the camera swings between him and Andrew as if imitating a fight with whip hands, each pulling out a new skill in an attempt to wrangle the stage from one another. Eventually the music stops and Andrew sits sweating over the drums, and looks to see the finally proud-looking Fletcher, who says the words he saved the best player found, as he has finally discovered his Charlie Parker.
Hi, this is Luke. If you liked that video, please like and subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications about new videos.